because the money is not there. So therefore, what do you think are the essential areas that proposition you're going to present based on this fact that the money is not there? Whether at local level, regional or national level, is not there. If you follow the news in the last few days, even the Chancellor husband said we are not out of the woods yet, that we still need to tighten our belt. So you are the future and you have to be realistic about the prospect. The money is not there. So therefore, it's something on what you also need to go and do as well. You know that we are there to support you.
We are being realistic with what we've said before. As I've said, that we are not asking for no cuts whatsoever. We're asking no reduction in cuts. Because the 73% is basically three-quarters of the budget gone, and that is just for one. That's just for the youth service. So if really the council is so concerned about our people, then I think it should be a priority to spread that around, or like around different services, not just three-quarters of this youth service gone.
So to build on that, we have already been cut already, and I think actually the biggest thing we've been asking for since the very beginning, before we even said we want a reduction in cuts, is that we just want to be consulted. Yeah. We understand that the money isn't there, but we just want to be asked, even if we have to take big cuts, just want to be asked, and certainly haven't been told about it.
Secondly, like, we're the direct line to young people, so if there are cuts or anything going around, we can ask young people, what do you want to prioritise in the borough, what do you want? But if with a 73% cut, how can we get a chance to do that? What can we do with three-quarters of the budget gone? Because the whole point of youth services is for young people, to get them out of crime, to like, stop like gang, like deaths and gangs and all of that stuff. So basically, I feel like right now, for us to say, yeah, there's no money, that is the truth, but to say 73% cut will solve all financial problems, it will not. That's not possible.
Yeah, and
I think that. Sorry, I think that's clear. Thank you. Well made.
Yeah, I was going to build on that by saying, oh my God, it's gone from my head.
Okay, well, in which case I'll come back to you before we end. I'm just going to carry on with I'm working my way around, and I think is it Lisa or James first? I'm checking.
I want to start by saying that I think it's absolutely terrible that you were told you were going to be consulted by Councillor Mills, and then you weren't. And also that you were told you could come along to Council Assembly and address all the councillors about your concerns, and again you were then told fairly late on that wouldn't be allowed. We desperately need young people in this borough to be more involved in our processes, and I think this Labour-run council has sent you a terrible message in ignoring you like this. I appreciate it's been Christmas, but actually sending an email or picking up the phone doesn't always have to take longer than about 10 or 15 minutes, and I do think it's disgraceful that nobody has got back to you when the time frame is so tight, and you didn't ask, you're not responsible for the time frame, and yet you're at the mercy of it. And the point I wanted to make is, I don't know if you are aware, but this council tucks away £4 to £5 million every year in what they call contingency money, in case something dreadful happens in the borough. And if that contingency money is not used, it then just gets put in the council's reserves, of which there are billions and billions of pounds. Now, last year, I think 1.7 million of that contingency money did need to be used, but that still leaves over 3 million of last year's money, plus the 4 or 5 million from the previous 4 years. And I just wondered what your view was with that piece of information. How do you feel about, as you say, a huge three-quarter of your budget cut? And we've only started to hear from several people the impact of what you think could happen here. And I just want to know your views about that, about those 2 points. Really. Thank you.
I think, I'm still working my way around. I've seen Sandra, but I do want to say thanks for your contribution, Lisa. Although I do feel that we must give Councillor Mills the right of reply and a chance, and that actually I don't want you to get any impression, that this is all there is to say about that. As I repeated twice, you know, we're going to have a meeting, an overview and scrutiny, where we look at young people's services in the round. With
You can't
every
give them
other,
that information,
no, Lisa,
Jessie.
please don't interrupt me because I didn't interrupt
She
you.
doesn't get back to them.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. I mean, we simply haven't been consulted at the end of the day. I mean, we might be having supposedly a consultation period now.
We had a meeting with and XYC members and members of the SGT. Kieran was there, and it was basically she wants us to make a proposal, and obviously, how do we do that? We don't know the budget. We don't know what you want.
And another thing is that, you know, we could have had time. We could have really, you know, looked over this and gone to young people and had meetings with her and said, where can the cuts be made? Where can the savings be made? We'll go to young people. We'll ask them what their priorities. We really could have done all that, and we so would have engaged. But we simply weren't given the time. So we were simply. It was simply announced. We were simply told that was what it was. So we really do feel like we haven't been listened to here.
It's pretty ironic.
We weren't even told. We weren't even told about that. We simply
if there's
found
money
out.
tucked away, how can the statement be made? There's no money.
Well, can I just say, on the reserves, I mean, there'll always be a situation whereby organisations have reserves, and then you have to say, don't you? I mean, please let me finish.
It isn't billions.
Lisa, can I just remind you that you are actually the vice chair? I do not want you to use this committee in this way. You know, this is a difficult subject, and we are going to get to the nub of it. But I will not have anybody in this committee interrupting it at the scale that we see in the other committees, because if you're going to use this committee like that, then I'm sorry that you're going to have to go. So I listen to you, you're going to have to listen to me. No, I will not be interrupted. Excuse me, I haven't finished. What I was going to say is that we will, you know, Councillor Mills is committed, you know, to meeting the needs of children and young people. I was going to say this without being interrupted. There will always be reserves. There will always be a discussion about what you do with that, whether you use it now or you sell off the family silver. Now, I will remind people, actually, because we are running a council here, that we don't just have obligations, you know, to young people, but we also have legal obligations to children in need. Do you see what I mean? So what happens if you have an increase in children in need and you have to meet their needs and you don't have the money to do that? So anyway, that's enough from me. I've seen Sonny, then James, and then Sandra.
I just want it just a very quick, you know, just a very few points I was going to make. I think it'd be sad if we try and play party politics. It's more than that. And you guys know me. I don't play party politics. And especially in this committee. The committee is about getting to the truth and seeing how we can work together. It's not supposed to be partisan. And it'd be sad if we reduce it to that. Now, the young people have made some very valid points.
Absolutely.
And let's see how we can, you know, speak with the cabinet member responsible. Is a practical solution we should be looking for, not scoring points. And that's what I want to say.
Thank you. That's very useful contribution. I have seen James. Lisa, I will definitely come back to you, of course I will, but I've seen James now, and I'm going to take other people that haven't spoken after James.
Yeah, just to go back to your point about children in need. Now, I work as a social worker, and I see that children and young people who don't have this sort of provision, or who have this provisions cut to the level that is going to be cut at, that's going to have an adverse effect on the amount of children who are known to social care. So in the long run, these children might get picked up by the looked after children's team, and in the long run it becomes a lot more expensive to provide for children and young people in the borough, simply because the early intervention, i.e. youth services, are not in place before that happens. So the council, all of us as a council, we need to look at that effect that the cuts will have on youth services. In the long run, it becomes much more expensive. So the savings you make now, compared to the losses you make in the future, are not sustainable.
Well, there is that is a a good argument, so we have to take that into consideration. Okay.
Well, I'm not sorry, I haven't finished yet. So in terms, going back to the C word, consultation, whatever processes we have in place, I just feel that they need to be looked at again. They need to be reviewed from top to bottom. That's all there is on that. You know, I don't need to elaborate. It's been spoken about by, you know, several people here. It needs to be looked at from top to bottom. That's all.
Thanks, James. And luckily, we have got an opportunity to raise those. Thank you.
So.
Okay. Sorry, I've seen Sandra. Don't worry, I'm coming back over here. Don't worry.
Starting with Francois would be good.
Sandra and yeah.
I'd just like to clarify that the 73% isn't entirely from the youth budget. It's spread over the adult and the children's services. And if you look at page 63, it goes in detail of what the proposed one, because nothing's set in stone yet. The other thing is, I'd be interested to know how much is in the reserve, but I assure you it's not billions. And that's all I've got to say. Just wanted to clarify that. I agree that if the previous Children's Services Cabinet member managed to meet with our Youth Council once a term, the present one should try and do that as well. That's all I'm saying on the consultation. And I'm not sure when you sent the email, but we usually have a system where we reply to emails within a certain amount of days. I'm not sure when you sent the email.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just make sure. Lisa, do you want to... Oh, George, then Lisa, then I'll come back over. Thank you.
Yes, I'm very enthused by the presence of you tonight and the electric atmosphere you've created. It's very, very positive. And also the work that you've been doing within Southwark in these last 2 years. I'll just emulate what other people have said. I'm very concerned about the lack of consultation because it's just not on youth service and education. We found it on the Canada Water Leisure Centre as well. There's a lack of consultation in Southwark Council full stop, which I've experienced in education. I think it's something that this council has to look at. It really does. So I hope that you will be the catalyst for Southwark Council to look at how they consult generally on anything going forward, be it budget, be it schools, be it actual change of housing, because I think it's a big concern of this council.
Okay, Charlie?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to change the subject slightly. You're all young people. I support lowering the age to vote to 16. But I met a young man yesterday. We were out door knocking. Young man, 26 years of age, and I said, "Do you vote?" No, he said, "I've never voted." I went, "What? Never?" He said, "No, I'm not interested." Cool. I would ask you how you would, if we did lower the age, how you would get your peers, young people you know, to come out and vote. How would you do that? Because when you're young, you know, there's other things on your mind. I know that. You know, believe it or not, I was young once.
You're young.
Yeah.
You still are.
Still on, Charlie?
Thank you very much.
Okay, Lisa, did you want to come in now, or do you want to wait for the young people? What do you want to do?
I just wanted to say, just quickly, I didn't mean to be disruptive, Jasmine, but I'm not here to toe the line, and I'm not here to pipe down. I'm here to scrutinise this council and to criticise this council when I think it's not fulfilling its obligations and it's letting people down. And I think the worst possible group of people to let down in this borough is young people.
Correct.
And I don't want to be seen as being a part of that. That's why I'm speaking up, because I refuse to let young people down. And they should have all the facts. And they have already said they were really, really willing to help this council. Not that it's their job, but they were willing to help this council go through things and try and find some solutions. And I just think it's an absolute travesty that they weren't taken up on that.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. I just don't want people interrupting each other because I just don't think it helps. But, you know, you've made a good point.
Thank you. Yeah, could we start with Francois and then I'll go on and you go on.
Okay, thank you. You're so democratic.
I would say that possibly the best incentive for voting or any engagement in any political process would be the fact that your voice is heard and that it counts for something. On the subject of termly meetings, why even stop there? Why can't there be young people invited to every meeting that you have? on the 2nd of February, could I ask, is it open?
It is open.
And how many young people have been invited to that?
Oh, you're all invited.
Okay.
I mean,
So,
it's a public meeting.
Starts at 1 o'clock.
that is not accessible for young people.
What time?
I thought it was an all day thing.
Starts at
Well,
1.
the youth item is at 1:30 till 2 o'clock.
Well, youth will be in school or at work.
That's a fair point, isn't it?
School or at work at that time.
If the machinery of Southwark can fit
New
us
turn.
in, we'll be more than willing to be there.
Cheers.
Well, can I just take that as an action point? I'm happy to take that and to discuss it with the chair of Overview and Scrutiny to see if we can rejig that, because we are discussing everything.
Could I just make a
Yep.
hopefully positive point? I cannot see that a head teacher or an employer, if they were approached by the young people with a letter from the council about the vital need for their attendance on the 2nd of February, that it would be refused unless you were having an examination. I think if there is a legitimate case for engaging young people, and there is a formal letter from this committee or whoever is appropriate sent to the young people so that they can show it to their head teacher or indeed to their employer, I think certainly it would be it would not be educational for people to refuse you coming.
Okay.
Can I just get a steer? What time does the whole meeting start? Because I can't remember.
1 o'clock.
It starts at 1, and what time does it finish?
About 7.
6:30. So really, it shouldn't be difficult.
On the 2nd, is it?
It shouldn't be difficult to move it around as long as the councillor can.
So you're on scrutiny. Are you on scrutiny?
Childcare issues.
Oh, are there? Okay.
Lisa, yeah.
Okay. Well, there are childcare issues, so that makes it difficult. So.
No, but I can't see that any reasonable person would refuse your attendance.
It's on
Tuesday.
Tuesday, 2nd of February. So if no one's in exams, then it might be easier. Okay, sorry, you've been so patient.
Could I ask the members of the council to ask? I'm just a citizen from Southwark. I go to all the community council meetings for Bermondsey and Robert High Court.
Oh, welcome. What's your name?
Keith.
Oh, hi Keith, welcome.
Can I ask, is it possible for a finance officer from the council to sit down with young people and brief them on what reserves are available, what capital is being allocated, and what money is being allocated to human services? My own preference is that money would rather go into human services in times of crisis like this rather than capital projects. And then the young people, if that meeting could happen before the 2nd of February.
Okay. Yeah, I'm quite happy to take that to the head of finance.
Brilliant.
I've got 4 points actually. My second one is, has an impact assessment been done on this policy decision? Has the council seen that impact assessment? Has the young people seen this?
Correct.
A decision of this magnitude should have a full financial impact assessment and a risk assessment done with a quality, like a quality impact assessment on this decision at this level.
Yeah.
And I think it would be important for Scrutiny Council to see this.
Yeah. I'm happy to talk to the cabinet members and the director in charge of this, but I can pretty much assure you that no decisions are taken without looking at things in the round. I mean, this is, it's a pretty treacherous budget to have to make. We've been fortunate compared to other local authorities. Some local authorities have had to completely decimate their libraries, all their services. So we've been, because of the nature of Southwark and the reserves, we've managed to withstand some of the harshest areas, but we've hit a wall now. Do you know what I mean? The money coming from central government is such that there's no room to manoeuvre. But I can pretty much assure you, knowing the cabinet and knowing the lead officers that I do, that no decisions made willy-nilly. But thank you very much. That's really useful. I'm sure that no one will have a problem in having that meeting with you. I'll raise it.
And my last point was, in the community council meetings, we were asked last year, rather starkly actually, they said if you had to choose between youth services and adult services and a funding cut to one or other, which would you choose? And our community council of 200 participants came back and said preserve the youth services, take the cuts from adult services. That was the view of our community council. Southwark has been modified. And I'd be interested to know what the decisions were from the other community councils in Southwark and what the South Council has done with that consultation to the community.
I mean, that's interesting, but I'm Peckham and Nunhead, and I don't really recall that kind of vote, and that does seem a bit unusual to me because you're not looking at like for like, because you've got legislation around vulnerable adults, do you see what I mean, that you don't have around young people. So, do you see what I mean? So you've got vulnerable adults that may need, have a life and death scenario, hence the point I made with the children in need, which you don't necessarily have with young people's services. So I find that a bit strange that even came up as a poll, but I'm happy to look into it.
Children's social care and adult social care rather than children's services as a whole.
Remember the one where we put the butcher's paper?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say actually.
Okay.
James.
Okay, right, thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to answer a few questions and respond to a few questions that was asked. I was at the meeting with Councillor Victoria Mills and SYC was voicing their frustrations, and I must say that as Southwark Youth Council, I don't see any training, any consultation with them in terms of how to best voice their frustration in a way that the council and the councillors and the whole council could hear them. Thankfully by SGTO, the youth forum has been advised. We know how to actually prepare and put an impactful deputation together to bring to in front of the councillors, and we saw how well received it was in the last deputation, whereas the Southwark Youth Council wasn't as prepared as us, almost like they didn't have any support in doing so. Also, Jasmine, you mentioned the children in need. If the young people aren't safeguarded from now, like we are children in need, basically. And if we're not safeguarded, then crime rates will go up and a lot of people will be affected. I think it was a valuable point about doing a risk assessment and an impact assessment. And if that's been done, as you said, they would love to see that. Because if that's been done, surely it's from the people at grassroots working with the young people, hearing from the likes of Michelle's Youth Futures, from the Youth Forum, from Boyhood to Manhood, hearing from us guys in that impact session. Also, being aware of, I wasn't even aware of the money that was in the contingency, but if that is for a rainy day, it's raining today. Like now would be the time to go in there. I think there was a saying along the lines of don't spare the rod and spoil the child or something. Yeah, that's like sparing something and leaving us to rot out in the cold, waiting, saying no, there's going to be an emergency when nothing happens for 3 years, yet our lives have been heavily affected. I would suggest that in terms of young people being involved in decision making, there's something about a young person's mind and problem solving. We've been able to get ourselves out of a whole heap of stuff when we was younger. So if we're in a place whereas everything is put before us, like guys, this is the cut from central government, we don't know what to do, what's the best option? With our creative minds, we'll be able to help and go back and forward and knock heads together to see how best we can make a decision that's not as damaging. And I would even suggest that what we can do is just gain support from the council to actually fundraise. There's so much opportunities out there. There's so much celebrities that are doing well in our community. So much other people doing so well, and opportunities that if we get the support by the council, then we'll be able to raise some money one way or another.
I think that's a great point. Also, I know that the chair of my community council, Johnson City, he was talking about, because we have got small pots of money in neighbourhood funding, how we might be able to use that collectively to mitigate some of this. So, you know, that's a tremendously positive point. Thank you for that. And, you know, we'll definitely work on that.
Yeah, and Hugo had something to say.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm taking Rhoda.
Thank you. I agree with you, everything you say, Kieran, but I think the point that SYC wasn't really prepared to like deliver the speech and deputation in a constructive way isn't really true. I feel like we delivered the speech and deputation in the best way possible we could, and I think the reaction from the council, we couldn't really control their reaction, how they would, we couldn't control whether they were going to ask us questions or not, but they chose not to. They could have asked us questions, but they didn't, because they just dismissed us. So I feel like we are put together. And we can.
Like you guys definitely delivered on your behalf. Well, you did what you had to do. But in terms of some guidance with someone with experience,
can I just say
it would have helped us.
I mean,
out a lot.
that's probably a fair point, and I think that's right, because if you're not getting the reaction, you know, that's going to have, you know, an effect on your performance, no doubt. Okay, I'm going to have to move this on now. Is that all right? Okay, go on.
I just want to say. I think Kieran really highlighted some of the points really well. Yeah, and I think some people have to kind of pay attention to specifically the rainy day. I used to work in Richmond Council and Southwark and Enfield Council, and I'm always amazed why the council, from an economic perspective, is not concerned with revenue. It has plant and capacity, but it doesn't seem to know how to squeeze revenue out of plant capacity. And I think that's what you're talking about. So what we're trying to say, what I'm trying to do with the youth forum is trying to get them to do collective decision making by looking at what's around them and using the community as a base to use resources without necessarily spending money. We get caught up with all this money. We've still got brains, we've still got streets, we've still got halls. If you give young people a hall, for example, you know, they can, Friday night, they can have it as a nightclub, they can generate revenue. They can use it on Sunday for classes, use it on Tuesday for yoga, use it, you know, the council's selling off assets to people who don't even live in Southwark, and that's what really upsets the Southwark People Tenants Organisation, because it seems that the investment, and we're even lukewarm about using, I would run a deficit on youth services, I would, because it's an investment. Deficits are sometimes seen as an investment, and sometimes they're seen as a problem. It depends on how you use it.
And there's corporate social responsibilities that would respond to the council more than a grassroots organisation.
Yeah. Sorry. Can I just build on your guys' points? Just forgetting the money for 1 second. Can I just make one final point?
Can I just say, yes, this is the final point, but then I'll summarise where we're up to. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Forgetting the money for 1 second. I don't know if there's millions or billions in reserves. I don't know about plant and capacity. I don't know even if we can realistically say we can't take a 73% budget. Maybe that's inevitable. Maybe we have to. But the simple point is, the fact that I do know is that young people haven't been listened to. I mean, you said that Victoria Mills is committed to children and young people. I sincerely hope she is, and I want to work with her, so that we can help young people. But frankly, over the past 2 years, she has not shown that. She has not listened to our voices, and she could have. And forgetting all the money or anything like that, or all the reserves, that fact remains the same. She has not listened to our voices, and we need to be listened to.
Okay, thank you for that, Hugo, and thank you very much to everyone that contributed to that. One thing that I wanted to say, Francois, Billy, Rada, Fuller, Hugo, Kieran, I've got this list here, and it's got names and email addresses of all the people that are here tonight. Please can I ask, don't leave this room without putting your name and email address, because, you know, I want to feed back to you the results of, you know, what we've done with this information. Please put in your diary let me get this right now, Tuesday the 2nd of February. Can I suggest that you try and turn up a bit early? I know that you're meant to be in school, but if you need any help, you know, with a letter or an email, I'm happy to do that for you. I can, circulate my details. Where we're up to now is that I will feed this back to not just Councillor Mills, because in all honesty, she may be the lead member, but let's get this into perspective. She is not completely responsible for the entire budget. Do you know what I mean? She has to cut her cloth to what she's got. So I will talk to Councillor Mills, but I will also talk to Fiona Colley, and she's a person, and also the leader. I'm happy to talk to them all about all of the points that are raised here. Julie, who's the minute taker extraordinaire, she will have captured all of these points, and if she hasn't, we'll get a chance to add to them. I just wanted to thank all of you for contributing. We will come back to you within the next 2 days about, what has happened when we've raised this. We will definitely see you on the Tuesday. And I also wanted to thank Lisa, for raising this issue at the last meeting. Although I will say, not to be defensive, but in a positive way, that this committee have always had youth services on this work plan. And we'll come on to that in a minute. Now, I do want to close it there. I do want to, with the permission of the committee, I do want to have a 2-minute break and then return for 10 minutes before we close, if that's okay.
Would you be able to reschedule the meeting so the meeting can happen after school time? Because I don't think a letter would be.
I cannot. Rather, I don't have the power to do that, because I understand that the reason why it's scheduled as it is because my colleague and fellow councillor Victoria Mills has got twins, and so that will be locked in with her childcare, you see. So I don't have the authority to just change people's diaries.
I appreciate that Victoria's got childcare issues, but could we as a committee perhaps request that it's looked into whether or not that she can make arrangements, because I think we should at least try.
Yeah.
I mean, I know schools should give you permission to go, but you might well have very important things going on that you shouldn't have to miss.
Yeah.
And if we can just request that it's accommodated.
We will. And as I say, any points that have been made, we will take into consideration and feed them back.
And Kids Company? I would want to speak about Kids Company today.
Okay. Well, we're going to have
just
a
quickly,
2-minute.
I would say maybe from the inception, if the meetings were scheduled with the thought that young people would attend them, there would probably be a different timing, and that would probably be a good
I've heard that loud and clear. I will be feeding it back, and we'll do everything we can. I know that Victoria will do as much as she can to arrange that if it's within her gift. Now then, I have got another element to this meeting, and that is on the issue of Kids Company. So, with the permission of the committee, please, and the attention of the committee, I would like an extension of this meeting to 9:45, if I may, and I would like to have the next 10 minutes talking about the Kids Company. Is that all right with everyone?
We're going to have a break.
Yeah.
Should we do Kids Company and then...
Kids Company, then a break, or we'll be here all day, all night.
All right, okay. Are we going to go till 10 o'clock then?
Yeah.
Go to 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Can you go to 10 o'clock, Lisa? Okay, all right then. Without further ado, we've had an extension on the guillotine. Thank you very much. So the next 10 minutes are over to young people, and the first issue is up for discussion now. To make clear that we've moved on a little bit, it's the issue of Kids Company. We did scrutinise that. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Have we got your email and everything?
Yes, I wrote that down.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Right. So we've had the discussion on Kids Company already. We're halfway through our scrutiny review about what have the impacts have been on Southwark. We've heard from the director, and we felt that he did an excellent job in a very difficult circumstances. What we are all concerned about, him included, is, some children and young people may be under the radar now. So I'll just leave that hanging there and ask any young people if they have any thoughts or ideas on this. the impact on young people. Yeah. Well, yes, well, I've opened it up, not just young people, but also boyhood to manhood and young teachers.
Hi, good evening. My name is Fima and I was part of Kids Company. And since the closure in September, was it last year, September it was, literally we've just like been left in the deep end. From when it shut down, we've literally just had no contact with nothing, you know, like we just no one to speak to. Fortunately for me, I'm a young person who like I'm out, I'm about doing positive things in the area. So I was I'm doing good things for myself and for other young people, like putting them helping, being a young community champion basically. So the help that Kids Company gave me, I was able to move forward and achieve a lot of things, like in having a mentor, which I'm still in contact with my mentor. Mentor just basically for the way I am, like
Sorry, what's your name again?
For me.
Have you not been reassessed by Southwark then?
No.
You haven't? I'm surprised to hear that. Sorry, carry on.
So basically just I don't know about other young people, but for me, I've been having no contact, I haven't spoken to anybody. On Christmas Day, Kids Company helped out with a hamper, and that's the only thing I've received from Kids Company. But like someone talking to me or like checking up on my well-being and how I've been since the closure, all of that, we haven't had contact.
Okay, thank you. Make sure we get your details and we'll come back to you on that. Is that all right, Julie? Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and as a former young person and young ambassador at Kids Company, I must say that since the closure, I didn't even know that Southwark Council was doing anything about it. Me and Fumi, we do voluntary work at Always Creative. We put on events and we've initiated peer-to-peer support groups, and where we also study together and help each other out. And we still haven't been contacted. I was contacted by like the press. They found me. I wanted to talk to me, Channel 4 and ITV. I was also on BBC London. So, because anyone that types Kids Company online, you come across me some way down the line as a young ambassador. And I have over 50 clients in my direct phone book, in the contact list. So, and many of them haven't received any support. They haven't been contacted at all. In fact, when I'm in the presence of many of the clients of Kids Company, they just speak about the harshness after what's happened, and it really is very serious. Like some of them are in really serious conditions and are at high risk of being harmed, both sexually and physically, because of gang violence, and a lot of stuff that they were supported with therapy is just no longer there. And I wasn't even aware. I was aware that Lambeth was doing something because they actually got someone on board that was a former staff at Kids Company, so he already knew a lot of the young people in Lambeth. He got in touch with me as well. I was able to put in touch with more young people in Lambeth. However, that wasn't happening in Southwark.
Especially especially the young mothers as well. Speaking to them, like having to help with the babies and child. So it's really difficult actually.
So what can you advise us? Because we did try and get files. We got as many files as we could. So there are two problems here. There was a disparity in the files, of all the people in Southwark using that. So, we're not sure if we did get every file. And then there was an issue of people that might go underground because they think that actually the council is too formal and too official, and they may have immigration status or a whole range of things that they want to hide. So, how do you advise us the best way to go forward? I'll raise this with the chief officer now, but if you know about people that are at risk, then we need to know their details, don't we?
Yeah.
We're from Boyhood to Manhood Foundation, and we were actually given some funding to go out on the bus that our project was between certain hours. And we did come across some people who were on the ground and wouldn't be registered and didn't want to come on the bus and didn't want to be, because they thought we were
officials.
No. Informers. A lot of them were illegal. Yeah, you know that. And a lot of them just didn't want to engage. What we found difficulties when we were our project was approved was there was no contact list of knowing who was Kids Company, who wasn't Kids Company, and what we found was a lot of people were Kids Company for all the wrong reasons. They were Kids Company. Yeah? So they were going there, but they weren't really part of the thing. They were going there from all kinds, all different ways, being attached to Kids Company. What they told us was for money. And so it was very difficult, and it was only a very short period of time. It was 8 weeks. It was a very short period of time. Now, you can't do much in that time period. But we found out a lot. There are people under the radar. Most of them are illegal. And there are West Africans, Kurds, etc., etc. So it is there. The numbers we don't know, so we can't tell you what the numbers are. But it would have been very useful to have had a list. If we had been given a list of who these children were, because we were in Camberwell, we were in Peckham, we were Oldgate Road, we were at the top, but it's finding you at the times that we had programmed. When you're a youth group with program, we did the best that we could, but there you go.
Okay.
Again, I would say consultation is great here. Being the leader of Always Creative and a part of SGTO Youth Forum, if you reached out to any one of us, you'd have got in touch with us immediately, and there's a vast network that we're in touch with, and many of them live in Southwark, and many of them are young parents and really struggling. And what Fumi briefly mentioned, that on Christmas Day there was the hampers going out, I was facilitating that with the van driver, and that was actually from the food bank in Lambeth, and it was a very rainy and cold day, but you saw young mothers come out in that weather. I was soaking, and they came out in that weather. Young people came out to the old building that got closed down at Decimus Street to collect these big bags that was so heavy to carry, and that for me just showed me that there is a great need here. There's a lot of young people and young parents with empty cupboards and children to look after, and consultation, like we're here now and we're presenting ourselves before you. Please, we would like to speak with you, because there's many of our peers that are far more worse than we are. I wouldn't even like to disclose any sensitive information in this space about me or for me, but if you do get in touch with us, there are situations that do need to be seen into, and support is needed in the community.
Okay, well, we've got your details and we'll complete this. Will we be able to write all of this up by tomorrow and then feed it into David Quick Thornton?
Oh, we only have very rough notes by tomorrow, but...
Yeah, but that'll do.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, yep, good, thank you. Anyone?
You see, the thing is, they're talking about financial needs, immediate needs, food, clothing, housing. The projects that were funded were not like that. We couldn't have helped you, even if we'd met you, because we didn't have those kind of resources. No. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. So that's why it got closed down, wasn't it?
It's the projects that got funded and what they were specifically asked to do. Yeah, young parents and children, that wasn't our remit. We could not have helped you. That's another age group. We were strictly 16 to 18.
Wow.
Do you see 16 to 18?
Yeah. That's a lot.
And we were given specific areas. So it limits us.
So wasn't it on your agenda? Didn't you develop a program that?
No, because
it was done. It was 8 weeks.
The young
it was
people.
Sudden. It was just to go out and try and target people straight away within that age group to find out how we could help them. Because it was 8 weeks.
Because don't forget, the young people would have been picked up in the files that were handed from Camilla Batman-Gellert to our director, who went every night and tried to get files every night, which is no easy task. So, if they're under a certain age, then they are the responsibility and the duty of the local authority. Do you see what I mean? So that's why you have that division. Okay, anyone else here on this issue? No? Okay.
I'm really upset.
Okay.
Because when I found out what the council had for youth service,
yeah,
and what was given to, no offence, for the whole borough, what was given was smaller than what she got in the last tranche, I was hopping mad. We started at the same time. From Boy to Manhood and Camilla started at exactly the same time. We got funded by Lord Harris at the same time. Yeah, we do the same similar kind of work. We did gangs, we did crime, we did everything. We worked with them. We never saw her at any of these meetings. And for the groups that were out there getting no funding, and for the many groups that got shut and cut down in Lambeth with no funding. No, this is for the young people, because they don't know. You need to understand there were lots of other groups who didn't get funded and closed down, who would have been looking after you now, whether Kids Company closed or stayed, they got lost. So I'm just letting you know, as a representative of the third sector, a lot of us are very upset.
I have some questions here. I'm aware that 83,000 was set aside for community groups to continue working with those affected by Kids Company closure.
I haven't got that information, I'm sorry.
So, but there is a budget. Yeah, that was David. I think David.
Oh right, okay. Is that right?
Approximately 83,000, and a few budgets was given out to Boyhood to Manhood, to Youth Future, to Holiday Youth Centre, and another, I think, Time and Talents. However, we would like to know, is there still a budget, and is it just 83,000 for all these different community groups working over in Peckham, Dulwich, Bermondsey and Rotherhithe, Elephant and Castle? Because that isn't pretty much.
Yeah, it is about that. I think
this was all transitional work.
But it was about 8 weeks to just pick up programs of what they already had running. These weren't new things, to just pick up and try and find you all, but it was different age groups and different people doing different things. So that's where the disparity is. You have to plan to take you all on. There wasn't the planning time. It was just come in, do, deliver, 8 weeks. You had to get it done in a certain time. It was manic.
I think we need frequent consultation. Regarding young people, their well-being and safeguarding young people, I think you need to try your best to involve us as much as possible.
I think that's right, but I do think that we had quite, in all fairness, we had a very short amount of time in order to find out who the people were, and we had no relationship to them before, so the idea that we could consult with anyone on the unknowns was very difficult. Do you see what I mean? Okay, Lynette.
Yes, it's reassuring to know that you're going to get in contact tomorrow with the information that has been raised. But I also think that we learned at the Scrutiny meeting, when we talked about Kids Company and what had been done by the council, that there was a statutory duty, whether somebody was here illegally or not, they could not. It was Southwark's responsibility, and I think it would be very important to make sure that people who are here know that they can assure people who are here illegally, children who are here illegally, that they will not be deported if indeed they are in a certain age group. It is Southwark's responsibility. They cannot send them home. And I know that is one of the concerns that were raised at that meeting, and I think I'm correct in my recall that that's correct. That is fact, yes?
It would depend on where they are with the immigration
Yes,
cases.
but I think it would be important, therefore, to brief people here today so that they can reassure the people appropriately.
I think, Lynette, we have to be careful on this, because actually,
that's why I'm saying,
please listen to me. I did run the London Asylum Seekers Consortium, and I think that there is an issue here. It depends where they are and their immigration status. So I cannot undertake to give that information when I don't know the case by case, because someone might be given information and deported the next day, and I'm not willing to take that.
If you listen to what I said, sorry. If that is fact, then we need to brief people engaged in contact. Look, but if it isn't, we should brief them about what is right, so that the people who are here illegally know what their position is. And for those people whose position does not mean they will be deported, then they should know that. And
I think that's really useful.
So that seems to me to be very, very important, because that will mean that certain young people will be looked after. And if they're there and people cannot get in touch with them, you are clearly a conduit to these people. I'm not suggesting for a moment that you disclose everybody, but that you get briefing to find out who you can responsibly disclose to council.
Yep, that's good. We'll put a recommendation to David Quipthornton that we do put a briefing out to clarify that, because that's what we wanted to talk to you about, really. We were nervous about people going under the radar, and, you know, for the issues you said, the safeguarding issues. Okay. Sonny?
Yeah, I just want to quickly find out. I think I have 3 questions here. You know, when a kit company, obviously, it closed down all of a sudden. Now, the former clients of kit company, as I've heard from Fumi, that there are some of them that have been not signposted to anywhere. Now, if that's the case, as soon as we learned that kit company had folded up, what action was taken by officers within the council that are responsible for that, and in order to oversee the transition between that folding up and us mopping up whatever is left from kit company?
I'm sorry, but did we not hear that with David Quipthornton?
Yeah, we did.
No, I'm trying to link that to trying to link that to something. So, imagine that was done. Then, obviously, from what we have from young people just now, that wasn't successful, because if there are still some individuals that are still hanging somewhere, then what mopping up exercise?
Yeah, but we need.
Wow, that's. But these are the questions we need to ask and then get answers for.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, final question is, how do we make sure that we address the situation and this learn some valuable lessons from this for the future?
I think we need to get this out tomorrow, really, don't we? Okay, thank you. Well, points well made, Charlie.
Well, I think the lid's really coming off the can of worms now, isn't it? Because at the last meeting, you know, we were told we don't know where these young people are for all these different reasons that we've spoken about. Now, you've mentioned the danger that young people are with gangs and young mothers and all the rest of it. And I'm really alarmed by that. But I don't want to sort of put these people at risk, you know. But somehow we've got to make contact with them to try and say that the council does have a statutory duty towards youngsters, you know. But how are we going to get around that without, as you say, because if you are under the radar, as has been said, the last thing you want is some sort of official from the council. Maybe yourselves might be the people to help, you know, with our supervision, with our support. I don't know. It's really alarming what you're telling us tonight.
That's a brilliant point, because many of the young people, they only want to engage when it's a trusted organisation or a trusted peer group, and that's why we've initiated these peer support groups, so we could definitely work in collaboration to best find out their needs, their situation, and how to make positive recommendations.
Okay. Any more on this particular issue, going under the radar and identifying and the briefing?
Yeah, definitely.
Just a minute, and on this side?
Yeah,
then you.
That's why I would assume the Southwark Youth Council is there, and that's why the Youth Forum is there. So you brief us, and then, you know, they go out and do these things. And that's why the round table that we're proposing to Councillor Mills is so important, because there needs to be constant dialogue and with stakeholders involved. But they're there, go through them, and please give more decision-making power to such things like the Youth Council. The Youth Council is just a consultative body.
Okay, well, this is a clear way that you can help here.
Basically, I was just wanting to pick up on what you were saying about his company and the young people that where they're going and stuff like that. And I think with organisation, I think there should be more working together, like joining up with these different organisations. Youth Futures as well. We're actually in a really critical situation at the moment, because we've had events, we've had like over 300 to 500 young people coming in out of our doors, mentors, do like activities and projects and things like that. And these would probably be like, it'd probably be like the right organisation to kind of bring some people from this country. And but we're in a situation now where we've lost our building. We were running our organisation in Hamilton Youth Club, and we were actually speaking to Joel Dixon Fowle about actually having an actual designated youth centre. And we looked at a building in Camberwell, which was perfect for it, where we were going to work with different organisations to build this. I don't know what happens with that situation. It kind of went pear-shaped. But I think that, is there any,
Can I just be clear?
I know this is probably not the...
Yeah, this is not really, but I do want to be clear, because at some point we've all got to go home. Yeah, I can stay, but I can't talk for the rest of the committee. But I will say one thing. This is not the purpose. We're not looking to set up a new kids company.
No.
I'm just interested in the people that have gone under the radar.
That's not what I was saying.
Okay.
I was saying what needs to happen is organisations need to come together and to be able to provide.
Yeah, that will certainly be part of the recommendation.
It's not just a financial issue. It's also the resources that council has to offer.
Absolutely, a reconfiguring of the whole.
So
Thank you.
Basically,
okay, thank you. Right, who did I see from over here? Thank you. Is that it now? On this? Go.
I mean,
thank you.
Are we going to ask the director for a response to what these good people are saying in light of what he reported back in the autumn?
No, if you would have listened, I did say that actually we're taking notes now, and I'm going to brief the director tomorrow. Okay. Is that clear now? Thank you. Sorry, but right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Can I just say thank you very much.
Before I go, there's one question I think needs to go on record. And I've just asked
It's all going on record, I assure you. It's all on record.
What I'm saying to this young man is, you're a champion for Kids Company, and you work with Kids Company. Why did Kids Company, knowing that it was going to close, not signposted these people to the organisations that are in the borough that could help them, that had programs going? Why did they not do their duty as well? This is a 50-50 thing.
Okay,
yeah?
I'm sorry. I'm happy to talk to you after. We're recording that point. Okay, I'm going to draw a line under this now. Thank you so much. Have we got all your emails?
No.
You're going to give...
It's a sheet at the front. It's just
Rhoda? Have I got your email? All right, brilliant, thank you. Okay. Have I got your email? Okay, I'm going to move on now very quickly. 5 to 10. Female genital mutilation.
Okay, so there's a summary report of the workshop, and the draft is close to completion, and we're going to meet next week for that. I spoke to the safeguarding, and he said he would think there might be an opportunity to take that to that meeting.
Yep. Yep,
So that
that's
might be a
good.
time to present on that.
And you did notice that we are actually at the Safeguarding Conference reporting on our work on that. So we better do something fairly quickly, haven't we? Okay, brilliant. Right, on the work plan, we all know, well, we've got a lot of action. We're still coming in. On the work plan. Do we all know where we're up to? We've got a lot of actions from tonight. So we need to write these up. I need to talk to Victoria and Fiona and Peter quite quickly. And we also need to feed back to David Thornton. So, Julie, if we could have the notes of that tomorrow. Have you got time to do that?
Well, what we have is like, I mean, I've got very rough notes.
Yeah, that's great.
And I can share notes with you. I mean, I think, do you want to brief the...
Yes, I will.
I think, so maybe we could meet on Thursday and like polish that up to send to him, and I can send you the rough notes tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I'll send him the rough notes tomorrow.
The rough notes will probably be good for us to look at.
That I need to let him know straight away. So whatever form they are in.
What I could do is I could bring out like the things that you summarise here.
Yeah.
I could try and highlight to you the main recommendations that we've discussed.
Yeah.
And then that could certainly be done.
Yeah. That sounds perfect. And I'll have a bit of time to do that as well too. Excellent. I just think that we can always finesse it, but right now, let's just get it out there because, people feel they're not being consulted. And, the issue of people going underground, once you know about it, you have to act on it, which is good. Okay, is everyone okay for the work plan? Okay. Can I thank you very much for your patience? I'm sorry that we went nearly an hour, not quite an hour, but nearly an hour over. But I think you'll think that actually, at least we've hit the ground running for 2016. We knew it was going to be a rocky year, but hopefully something will come good of this committee. I sincerely hope so. Thank you.
One of the best meetings I've been to.
Thank you.
Oh, wow, that's good. Nitty-gritty. Yeah.
Not waffle.
While we're here. So I think we could do better with the time.
Yeah, this is a really meeting,
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.